For 38 years she held her tongue, but on that day, Ms. Eleanor finally spoke up, and the millionaire's daughter-in-law would never be the same. If you've ever stayed silent when you should have spoken, if you've ever swallowed your pride because you needed the job, if you've ever seen someone treated like dirt and felt powerless to do anything, then this story is for you. It was a Friday morning when everything changed, but to understand what happened that day, I need to take you back 8 months to the exact moment when Rebecca Montgomery first walked through the gates of the Montgomery estate as the brand new daughter-in-law. The estate had 47 employees, gardeners, cooks, chauffeurs, maids, and Ms. Eleanor, the oldest and most tenured housekeeper of them all. 67 years old, African-American, heavy-set, with closely cropped grey hair, and hands that knew every nook and cranny of that house, better than the owners themselves. Ms. Eleanor had started working there at the age of 29, when Mr. Sebastian Montgomery, now a 72-year-old man and owner of a grocery store chain worth $800 million, was just a humble shopkeeper. With a single store downtown, she saw everything. She saw the company grow. She saw the children born. She watched Mrs. Montgomery, the boss's wife, fight cancer for 4 long years, and she was there, holding her hand, when she finally passed away 5 years ago. Mr. Montgomery never forgot that. Ms. Eleanor wasn't just an employee to him. She was part of the family, the only person he trusted implicitly, and everything was fine. Until Henry, the 38-year-old youngest son, showed up with a new fiancée. Rebecca was 34 years old, perfectly styled brown hair, designer clothes, a toothpaste commercial smile, and eyes that, if you looked closely, didn't quite smile along with her mouth. She claimed to be from a wealthy family from the South, refined, educated at the finest schools, perfect for an heir to $800 million. What no one knew was that Rebecca came from a middle-class suburban family. Her father was an accountant, her mother an elementary school teacher. There were no mansions in her past, only debt and a dream of climbing the social ladder at any cost. The engagement lasted 4 months. The wedding was the wedding of the year, and Rebecca finally crossed the threshold of the estate as the new Mrs. Montgomery. For the first few days, she was an angel. Smiles for everyone, compliments on the food, thank yous to the staff, hugs for her father-in-law. Mr. Montgomery was thrilled. Finally, his son had found someone worthy of the family, but Ms. Eleanor noticed something. Every time Mr. Montgomery or Henry left the room, something changed in Rebecca's eyes. The smile would vanish. Her voice would become different, and the words that came out of her mouth weren't the same ones she used in front of the family. It was during the second week, when Ms. Eleanor witnessed the first sign. She was cleaning the second-floor hallway when she heard a voice coming from Rebecca's room. The door was slightly ajar. "Listen carefully, because I'm only going to say this once," Rebecca was saying on the phone. "I don't care what they think. I married into this family for the money. Period. The old man is 72 and has a bad heart. When he kicks the bucket, half of everything goes to Henry, and half of Henry is mine." A pause. "No, the idiot doesn't suspect a thing. He's crazy about me. I can do whatever I want with him, and the father-in-law adores me. He thinks I'm the best thing that ever happened to his precious little boy." Ms. Eleanor froze in the hallway. Her heart was beating so loudly. She was afraid Rebecca would hear it. "The only thorn in my side," Rebecca continued, "is these old employees, especially that fat black woman who walks around this house like she owns the place. 38 years working here, Good God. I'm going to have to clean house of all this dead weight. But slowly. I can't raise any suspicion." Ms. Eleanor took a step back. The floor creaked. "Hello?" Rebecca said from inside. "Is someone there?" Ms. Eleanor didn't respond. She simply walked away, as quietly as she could, her heart racing and her hands trembling. That night, lying in her small room at the back of the estate, Miss Eleanor couldn't sleep. Part of her wanted to run to Mr. Montgomery and tell him everything. But tell him what? A conversation overheard through a door. Her word against the perfect daughter-in-law. Who was going to believe an old housekeeper? But part of her knew she couldn't stay silent forever. She had learned a lot in 38 years of service. She had seen enough dramas in that house to know one thing. The truth always comes out. You just need patience and proof. That's when she looked at the old cell phone on her nightstand, a simple device that her nephew had given her 2 years ago. She barely knew how to use it for calls and texts, but her nephew had taught her one more thing: how to record videos. Ms. Eleanor grabbed the cell phone, opened the camera app, and pointed it at her own face. "Testing," she whispered. "If this works, I'm going to need more memory." It worked. That was the night Ms. Eleanor decided she wouldn't be a victim. She would be a witness. And when the time was right, she would be a judge. But that decision would cost her much more than she imagined. Because Rebecca wasn't just cruel, she was smart. And her humiliations were only just beginning. If this story is already making your blood boil, imagine what's coming next. Because what Rebecca did in the coming months was so repulsive that some of you are going to want to reach through the screen and do something. The first public humiliation occurred 3 weeks after the wedding. It was a Tuesday. Mr. Montgomery had left early for a meeting in New York. Henry was at the office too. The estate was empty of Montgomerys, only the staff. And Rebecca, Miss Eleanor, was cleaning the living room when she heard a shout coming from the kitchen. Who was the idiot? Who left this dirty cup in the sink? It was Rebecca's voice, but not the sweet voice she used in front of her father-in-law. It was a voice that Miss Eleanor had never heard before, cold, sharp, full of contempt. Miss Eleanor went to the kitchen. What she saw left her speechless. Ruth, the 58-year-old cook who had worked there for 15 years, was standing in front of Rebecca, and Rebecca was holding a coffee cup. A simple cup. "Mrs. Montgomery," Ruth said, her voice trembling. "I was going to wash it right away. I just went to the bathroom and when I came back..." Rebecca threw the cup on the floor. The porcelain shattered into 1,000 pieces. "When I walk into this kitchen, I want to see everything spotless. Spotless. Do you understand? Or is your brain so limited that I need to draw you a picture?" Ruth lowered her head. Tears were streaming down her face. "And clean up this mess. Now. On your knees. I want to see your knees on the floor while you clean." Miss Eleanor stepped forward. "Miss Rebecca, I can." Rebecca whirled around. Those eyes that smiled for her father-in-law were now as cold as ice. "You, the old woman, no one called you. Get back to work and stop sticking your nose where it doesn't belong." Miss Eleanor felt a burn in her chest. 38 years working in this house. 38 years being treated with respect. And now this. But she said nothing. She just watched as Ruth knelt on the floor, picking up the porcelain shards with trembling hands, and in the pocket of her apron, her old cell phone was recording everything. That was just the first time. In the weeks that followed, Rebecca perfected her cruelty, always when the family wasn't around, always with the most vulnerable employees. She called Jake, the 62-year-old gardener, a useless old man when a plant died. She yelled at Mary, the 45-year-old nanny, because the guest room had a stain on the curtain. She accused Carl, the 55-year-old chauffeur, of stealing gasoline from the car. He had to show all the receipts to prove his innocence. But with Miss Eleanor, it was different. It was personal. "You fat hag," Rebecca would say whenever she saw her. "Don't you have anything better to do than stand there?" Miss Eleanor swallowed hard and recorded. "The smell in this house," Rebecca said once, passing through the hallway where Miss Eleanor was cleaning. I don't know if it's mold or if it's you. Probably you. Old broads have a distinct smell, don't they? Ms. Eleanor clenched her teeth. Her fingers felt for the cell phone in her pocket. It was recording. And Rebecca continued, because no one stopped her, because everyone was afraid, because Mr. Sebastian Montgomery had no idea what was happening. Each day was a new form of cruelty. Each day was a new humiliation, and Ms. Eleanor documented it all. There was the day Rebecca threw Ruth's lunch in the trash because there was too much salt in the food. Ruth had spent 3 hours preparing that dish, and she watched it end up in the garbage while Rebecca smiled. There was the day Rebecca accused Mary of stealing a perfume that she herself had hidden in Mary's room. The poor woman cried for hours, swearing she hadn't stolen anything, and Rebecca just laughed. There was the day Rebecca called Carl a useless old man and said that a monkey could drive better than him. Carl is 55 years old and has worked as a chauffeur for 28 years without a single accident. But Rebecca's words left him shaking for the rest of the day. And there was the day Rebecca found Ms. Eleanor resting in a kitchen chair during her lunch break. Just 10 minutes in an 8-hour workday. Rebecca burst into the kitchen like a hurricane. "What do you think you're doing, Jules?" she screamed. "You think I pay you to sit? Get up right now and clean the living room floor with your hands. I want to see your filthy knees on my white floor." Ms. Eleanor stood up slowly. Her 67-year-old knees protested. Her back ached. But she said nothing. She just went to the living room, knelt on the cold marble floor, and began to clean with her hands and in her pocket. The cell phone was recording everything. In front of him, Rebecca was an angel, bringing tea for her father-in-law, asking about his health, praising his wisdom. And Mr. Sebastian Montgomery, lonely since his wife's death, drank every drop of that fake attention as if it were water in the desert. "Henry is so fortunate to have found you," the old man would say, his eyes shining. "You are exactly what this family needed." Rebecca smiled. "Thank you, Father Montgomery. This family is everything to me." And Ms. Eleanor, observing from a corner, felt her stomach churn. For those watching this and feeling something boiling inside, I want you to know that feeling has a name. It's called indignation. And it's exactly what Ms. Eleanor felt every day. But she had a plan. Every night after work, Ms. Eleanor transferred the day's videos to a flash drive that she kept hidden in the back of her closet. She already had 847 hours of recording, 847 hours of humiliation, of racist insults, of abuse of power. But she knew it wasn't enough. Videos could be questioned. The word of a housekeeper against the daughter-in-law of the boss. She needed something more, something that not even Rebecca's best smile could explain. It was then that Ms. Eleanor discovered the second secret. It was a Thursday night. Rebecca had gone out with friends, and Henry was traveling. The Montgomery estate was quiet. Ms. Eleanor was cleaning Mr. Sebastian Montgomery's desk, something she did every Thursday, when she noticed an envelope on the desk. It was from the company's accountant, and it was open. Normally, Ms. Eleanor would never look at her boss's mail, but something compelled her to look. Maybe 38 years of instinct. Maybe the feeling that something was wrong. What she saw inside the envelope made her sit down in the boss's chair. It was an expense report from the company credit card. The card that Henry had authorized for Rebecca 3 months ago, for household expenses of the Montgomery estate. The numbers made no sense. Clothing store, $47,000. Jewelry store, $32,000. Luxury spa, $18,000. Imported handbags, $89,000. Monthly total, $286,000. On a card for household expenses. Ms. Eleanor took a picture of the document with her cell phone. And another. And another. Rebecca was not only cruel, she was a thief. And now Ms. Eleanor had the proof. But it still wasn't time. Not yet. Because Ms. Eleanor had learned something in 38 years of work. Patience is the weapon of the weak, and she knew how to use it like no other. What she didn't know was that Rebecca was also planning something, and the main target was her. Rebecca wasn't stupid. She knew that the old employees were a problem. They knew the house. They knew the boss. They knew secrets that could hurt her. And the worst of all was Ms. Eleanor, that fat old woman who walked around the house as if she owned it, who went in and out of Mr. Sebastian Montgomery's office as if she had special permission, who looked at Rebecca with those eyes that seemed to see more than they should. Rebecca hated her, a visceral hatred that grew every day. But she had to be smart. She couldn't just fire her. Her father-in-law would never allow it. She needed something more. She needed to make Mr. Sebastian Montgomery himself want to fire her. And she had a plan. It was in the 6th month of her marriage that Rebecca began to execute it. It started with small things. A piece of jewelry that disappeared, an object of value that wasn't in its place. And always she insinuated that she had seen Ms. Eleanor nearby. "I'm not accusing anyone," Rebecca would say to her father-in-law with a worried voice. "But yesterday, I saw Ms. Eleanor leaving my room, and today my diamond bracelet is missing." Mr. Sebastian Montgomery frowned. "Ms. Eleanor has worked here for 38 years. Nothing has ever disappeared before. I know, Father. I know. The bracelet probably just fell somewhere. Forget I said anything, but the seed was planted, and Rebecca kept watering it. Another week, another missing item, another subtle insinuation. Mr. Sebastian Montgomery started looking at Ms. Eleanor differently, not with distrust yet, but with a shadow of doubt that hadn't been there before. Ms. Eleanor noticed. Of course she noticed. After 38 years, she knew every expression on her employer's face, and she saw the doubt growing in his eyes. But she didn't say anything. She just kept working, kept recording, kept waiting, because she knew that Rebecca would eventually make a mistake. The arrogant always make mistakes. It was only a matter of time. What Ms. Eleanor didn't expect was that mistake coming sooner than planned. It was Rebecca's 7th month of marriage. A Wednesday afternoon. Mr. Sebastian Montgomery had gone to the doctor for routine checkups. The Montgomery estate was almost empty. Ms. Eleanor was cleaning the 2nd-floor bathroom when she heard voices in Rebecca's room. The door was closed, but not tightly closed, and the voices were raised. "I don't care what you think," Rebecca was saying. "I need more money." The other voice was a man's, not Henry's. An unfamiliar voice. "You've already spent almost $300 this month on the card. Henry's going to start asking questions. Henry's an idiot. He has no idea about anything. He thinks it's all household expenses, and when he finds out, he's not going to find out. And if he does find out, I'll be ready. In a few more months, I'll have enough saved to get out of here whenever I want, with or without him." Ms. Eleanor took her cell phone out of her pocket, opened the camera, pointed it at the partially open door, but then something moved inside the room. Footsteps approaching the door. Ms. Eleanor put her phone away and moved silently into the bathroom. Seconds later, she heard the bedroom door open. "Is someone there?" It was Rebecca's voice. Cold. Suspicious. Ms. Eleanor didn't respond. She waited. She heard the footsteps moving away. Only then did she let out the air she was holding. She hadn't managed to record the entire conversation, but she had heard enough. Rebecca wasn't just stealing from the family. She was planning to abandon them when she had enough. And there was a man involved, a man who wasn't Henry. Ms. Eleanor stored that information in her head, along with the videos, along with the photos of the card statement. The puzzle was becoming more and more complete, but she was still missing the main piece. The right moment to reveal everything. That night, Ms. Eleanor sat on her small bed and looked at all the evidence she had gathered. 847 hours of video. 23 photos of documents. First audio recording with Rebecca's voice confessing her plans. It was enough to destroy Rebecca. Enough to open Mr. Sebastian Montgomery's eyes enough to change everything. But Ms. Eleanor knew she had to wait for the right moment. A moment when the family was all present. A moment when Rebecca couldn't escape. A moment when the truth couldn't be ignored. And something told her that moment was near. Very near. Because Rebecca was becoming more confident, more arrogant, more careless. And arrogant people always make the mistake that destroys them. It was just a matter of time. And Ms. Eleanor had waited 38 years. She could wait a little longer. And that moment was approaching. If you were in Ms. Eleanor's place, what would you have done? Be honest with yourself. Because most people say they would speak up, that they would report, that they would confront. But the truth is that when you're 67 years old, when you need the job, when everyone sees you as just the housekeeper, courage costs a lot more. Think about that. A week before Mr. Sebastian Montgomery's birthday, something changed. Rebecca had gotten what she wanted. After months of insinuation and manipulation, she had convinced her father-in-law to give her a special power of attorney. A power that, according to her, was just to help organize the house. "Father," Rebecca had said in her sweetest voice, "you work so hard. You take care of the company, the business, the grandchildren. Let me take care of the house. I just need your authorization to make a few changes, hire new people, modernize the equipment. You deserve to rest." Mr. Sebastian Montgomery had smiled. He was a 72-year-old man with a tired heart and the longing to have someone taking care of him again. Since Mariana died, no one had cared so much about him. "Of course, dear," he had replied, signing the document without reading it carefully. "I trust you." Ms. Eleanor was in the hallway when the document was signed. She saw Rebecca's smile. That smile that never reached her eyes. That smile of victory. And she knew that the problems were just beginning. 3 days later, Rebecca called a meeting with all the employees. It was something that had never happened before. Mr. Sebastian Montgomery was at a business meeting in Rio. Mr. Sebastian Montgomery was at a business meeting out of town. Henry was traveling to Europe for work. The Montgomery estate was free for Rebecca to do whatever she wanted. Everyone in the kitchen in 10 minutes, she ordered through the house intercom. No exceptions. The employees looked at each other. No one understood what was happening. Ms. Eleanor dried her hands on her apron, checked that her cell phone was charged, and went to the kitchen. When she arrived, there were already 11 people there. Ruth, the cook, John, the gardener, Charles, the chauffeur, Mary, the nanny, and 7 other employees who had worked at the estate for years, all with expressions of fear, because they all knew how Rebecca treated them when the family wasn't around. Rebecca entered the kitchen like a queen entering her throne. Expensive dress, high-heeled shoes, perfectly styled hair, and that expression of superiority that made Ms. Eleanor's stomach churn. "All right," Rebecca began with her hands on her hips. "I'm going to be direct because I don't have time to waste with people like you." Dramatic pause. "As you already know, Mr. Sebastian Montgomery gave me the authority to manage this house. And look around you. Look closely. This house is full of old, obsolete people who are useless, people who should have been fired years ago." Ruth lowered her head. Tears were already rolling down her face. "That's why," Rebecca continued, "I'm here to inform you that starting today, a restructuring process will begin. In 30 days, 80% of you will be fired. I'm going to bring in new people, young people, people who know how to work." A murmur of despair rippled through the kitchen. 30 days. After years of work. Some of them had been there for over 20 years, but Rebecca wasn't finished. Her eyes landed on Ms. Eleanor, and a cruel smile spread across her face. "And you," she said, pointing a finger at her. "You're first on the list. 38 years here. 38 years of your scent permeating this house. 38 years of your fat, black face waddling through the halls, as if you owned the place. You're done. You have 30 days to get your things out of that little room in the back. and disappear from my sight. The silence in the kitchen was absolute. Ms. Eleanor looked at Rebecca. Those cold eyes, that cruel smile. That woman who had arrived 8 months ago and was destroying everything. And something inside her shifted. 38 years of silence, 38 years of loyalty, 38 years of hard work. And this woman thought she could destroy it all with a single speech. But Ms. Eleanor wasn't an impulsive woman. She had waited months for this moment. She had gathered evidence. She had planned every step. And now, finally, it was time to achy tea. Because what Rebecca didn't know was that the cell phone in the pocket of Ms. Eleanor's apron had recorded every word of that speech. And that in less than 72 hours. Everything she had built was going to crumble like a house of cards. But before I tell you what happened next, I need you to understand something. Ms. Eleanor could have exploded right there. She could have screamed. She could have cried. She could have resigned with her dignity in shatters. But she did none of those things, because Ms. Eleanor was a woman who had learned the most important lesson in life. Patience isn't cowardice, it's strategy. And the best revenge isn't the one that comes with rage. It's the one that comes with the truth. And the truth was about to be revealed. What I'm about to tell you now is the moment that made this story something that deserves to be shared. If you're watching this and you feel your heart racing, that your hands are sweating, that you need to know what happened next, then you understand why some people decide to give a super thanks to this channel. The little golden heart down there, it's not an obligation. But if this story is making you feel something, that click is a way of saying, I value this. Now, back to the kitchen of the Montgomery estate. Rebecca had finished her speech. The employees were devastated. Some were crying, others were staring at the floor. The silence was so heavy, you could cut it with a knife. And Ms. Eleanor still hadn't said a word. Rebecca crossed her arms, satisfied with the impact of her words. Anyone have something to say? She asked with a mocking tone. Any old-timers want to complain? No one moved. Rebecca smirked. Good. Then you can get back to your jobs. Enjoy these last 30 days, because after that... Excuse me. All eyes turned toward Ms. Eleanor. She had stepped forward. Her face was calm. Her hands were steady. Her voice was clear as a bell. Rebecca raised an eyebrow. What do you want, old woman? Ms. Eleanor reached into the pocket of her apron and pulled out her old cell phone. The cell phone that her nephew had given her 2 years ago. The cell phone that she barely knew how to use. The cell phone that had been her secret weapon for 8 months. Mom, are you familiar with what this is? Ms. Eleanor asked, holding up the device. Rebecca laughed. An old cell phone, just like you. But the laughter died when she saw Ms. Eleanor's expression. Those eyes that had remained downcast for 8 months were now looking directly at her. Without fear, without submission, only with the certainty of someone who holds the truth in their hands. It's got 847 hours of recording, Ms. Eleanor said. Every humiliation, every insult, every time Mom called someone a useless old fool, every time you threw food on the floor and made us clean it on our knees, every time you called us filthy. It's all here. The color drained from Rebecca's face. You have no right. And there's more, Ms. Eleanor continued, taking another step forward. I have the photos of the corporate card statements. $286,000 in 1 month. Clothing stores, jewelry, spas, nothing for the house, all for Mom. Rebecca stepped back. Her hands were trembling. That's a lie. A lie? Ms. Eleanor tilted her head. Do you want me to show everyone now? Or would you rather wait until your Sebastian gets back to watch it together? The silence in the kitchen shifted. It was no longer a silence of fear. It was a silence of anticipation, of hope, of seeing tyranny finally confronted. You can't do this, Rebecca stammered, her voice now trembling. "I have authority here. I'm the daughter-in-law of the owner. You're just a housekeeper." Ms. Eleanor smiled. For the first time in 8 months, she smiled. "I'm just a housekeeper. You're right, but I'm a housekeeper who's worked here for 38 years, who watched Mr. Sebastian build all of this from the ground up, who took care of Ms. Mariana until her last day, who has the number of the family's lawyer saved in this cell phone. The same lawyer that I recommended to Mr. Sebastian 25 years ago." Rebecca opened her mouth, but no words came out. "And you know what else I have saved here?" Miss Eleanor continued. "That conversation from 2 weeks ago, when you were talking to a man in your room, saying that Henry was an idiot, that you were going to collect enough money and abandon everyone, and that with or without him, you were getting out of here." Rebecca's jaw dropped. I didn't say that." "Would you like me to play the audio here in front of everyone?" Rebecca took a step back, and another, until her back hit the kitchen door. "You wouldn't dare," she whispered. "I'll destroy you. I'll throw you out on the street." Ma'am already tried that," Ms. Eleanor interrupted, 5 minutes ago. "And look where we are now." The employees watched the scene in silence, but their expressions had changed. The fear had disappeared. In its place was something that resembled hope. "Now, ma'am has a choice," Ms. Eleanor said, putting the cell phone back in her pocket. "You can wait for your Sebastian to arrive tomorrow and watch this together with him. Or you can get out of this kitchen right now. Go pack your bags and disappear from this house before he gets back." Rebecca stared at her with pure hatred, a hatred that burned so brightly. It seemed capable of setting the entire estate on fire. "You're going to pay for this," she hissed. "All of you are going to pay." Ms. Eleanor didn't move. "Maybe, but not today. Today, ma'am pays for every humiliation, for every insult, for every tear you made these people shed." Rebecca opened her mouth to respond, but before she could say anything, the kitchen door swung open behind her, and a familiar voice filled the air. "What in the world is going on here?" It was Henry, Rebecca's husband, Mr. Sebastian Montgomery's son, the man who was supposedly in Europe. But he wasn't in Europe. He was standing in the doorway of the kitchen, his eyes locked on his wife, with an expression Ms. Eleanor knew all too well. The expression of someone who's just uncovered a betrayal. What followed was one of the most tense moments that the Montgomery estate had witnessed in its 47 years of existence. Henry had returned from Europe a day earlier than planned. He wanted to surprise Rebecca, but the surprise was on him when he arrived at the estate. He heard voices coming from the kitchen, voices filled with anger, and when he threw open the door, he found his wife cornered by a 67-year-old housekeeper who was holding a cell phone like it was a weapon. "Can someone, anyone, explain what's happening?" Henry repeated, glancing from Rebecca to Miss Eleanor and then back to Rebecca. "My darling," Rebecca said, quickly piecing together her mask of the perfect wife. "Thank God you're here. This crazy woman is accusing me of horrible things, inventing lies. She's trying to destroy our marriage." Henry frowned. "Miss Eleanor, you've worked here since I was a boy. What's going on?" Ms. Eleanor looked at Henry, the boy she'd watched grow up, whom she'd comforted when he was hurt, whom she'd fed cookies, hidden from his mother. "Mr. Henry," she said calmly, "I'm going to show you something. Then you decide who's lying." "No!" Rebecca shrieked. "She's lying. She wants to destroy us. Don't listen to that fat old woman." Henry raised his hand. "Enough, Rebecca. Miss Eleanor has a right to speak." Rebecca clamped her mouth shut, but her eyes had become slits filled with hatred. Miss Eleanor pulled out the cell phone again, opened the video gallery, and selected one of them. "This was recorded 2 weeks ago," she said, turning the phone toward Henry. The video began. The image showed the mansion's kitchen. Ruth was in the center, and Rebecca was screaming. You think you can leave a dirty cup in my kitchen? You, a fat cook who should have been fired years ago, clean it up, on your knees. I want to see your knees on the floor." The video continued. It showed Ruth crying. It showed Rebecca throwing the cup on the floor. It showed every detail of the humiliation. Henry stared at the screen, his eyes wide. "This is," he whispered. "It can't be." Ms. Eleanor switched to the next video, and the next, and the next. 8 months of humiliations, 8 months of abuse, 8 months of cruelty captured on the screen of an old cell phone. Rebecca had fallen silent. Her face was pale. Her hands trembled. "And there's more," Ms. Eleanor said. "Extracts from the corporate credit card that Ms. Montgomery used for personal purchases. Conversations with a man who is not Mr. Henry. Plans to abandon the family when she'd saved enough money." Henry turned toward Rebecca. His face was red. His eyes glittered with tears of rage. "Is it true?" he asked, his voice trembling. "Rebecca, look at me. Is it true?" Rebecca opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. And then, as if a dam had burst, she began to cry. "My love, I can explain. Is it true or not?" Henry's shout made everyone jump. Rebecca lowered her head. Tears streamed down her face. And finally, after 8 months of lies, she told the truth. "Yes, it's true." The silence that followed was the longest that Ms. Eleanor had experienced in her life. Henry stared at his wife as if he were seeing her for the first time, and what he saw clearly disgusted him. "Get out of my house," he said finally. "Now, my love, please, don't call me that." Henry pointed to the door. "Get out, now, before I do something I'll regret." Rebecca looked around, at the employees who watched her in silence, at Ms. Eleanor who hadn't moved a muscle, at the perfect life that was crumbling around her, and then she did the only thing she could do. She walked out, without another word, without looking back, only the sound of her heels clicking on the marble floor as she walked away. Ms. Eleanor watched her leave, and for a moment, she almost felt sorry for her. But only for a moment, because 8 months of humiliation cannot be erased with tears, and justice, though late, always arrives. What came next was something Miss Eleanor never expected. Henry stood in the kitchen for a long moment, staring at the floor, processing everything he'd just discovered. And then, he did something that none of the employees expected. He knelt down in front of Miss Eleanor. "Forgive me," he said, his voice broken. "Forgive me, all of you. I didn't know. I should have seen. I should have protected you, and I didn't." Ms. Eleanor felt tears welling up in her eyes. 38 years working for this family, and never had a Montgomery knelt before her. "Get up, Mr. Henry," she said softly. "You don't have to kneel." But he didn't get up. "My father needs to know about this," he said. "He needs to see the videos, and he needs to apologize to them too." Ms. Eleanor nodded. "Mr. Sebastian is arriving tomorrow." "Then tomorrow's," Henry said, finally getting up. "This family is going to do the right thing, for the first time in 8 months. What Ms. Eleanor didn't know was that the next day would bring much more than anyone imagined. Mr. Sebastian arrived at 10 a.m. He was coming from a flight from Rio de Janeiro. He was tired. He wanted to rest, and he had no idea that his world was about to crumble. Henry was waiting for him in the study, with Ms. Eleanor's cell phone in his hand, with the videos ready to play, with a weight in his heart that seemed capable of sinking him. "Dad," Henry said when his father entered, "sit down. We need to talk." Mr. Sebastian frowned. "What happened? Is everything all right?" "No." Henry lowered his head. "Nothing is all right." What followed were 3 hours of the most difficult conversation that family had ever had. Henry showed the videos to his father, one by one. Every humiliation, every insult, every moment of cruelty that Rebecca had inflicted on the employees for 8 months. Mr. Sebastian watched the screen in silence. His face showed no expression, but his eyes told another story. When the last video ended, Mr. Sebastian remained still for a long moment, and then something that Henry had never seen in his life happened. His father, the man who had built a grocery store chain from scratch, the man who never showed weakness, the man who seemed made of steel, began to cry. They weren't silent tears, they were sobs. The sobs of a 72-year-old man who had just discovered he'd been deceived, that he had allowed innocent people to suffer under his roof, that he had trusted the wrong person. "I signed the document," he said through tears. "I gave her authority over the estate. I thought she was." Henry placed a hand on his father's shoulder. "We all thought that, Dad. She fooled us all. But that's no excuse." Mr. Sebastian Montgomery stood up, wiping his tears with the back of his hand. "Those people have worked for our family for decades. Ruth for 15 years, Michael for 22, and Ms. Eleanor for 38 years. She cared for your mother until her last day, and I let that woman." He couldn't finish the sentence. Henry waited. He knew his father needed time. "Where is Miss Eleanor?" Mr. Montgomery asked finally. "In her room, waiting. Take me to her." Miss Eleanor was sitting on her small bed when she heard the door open. She was prepared for anything, for being fired, for being accused of spying, for being thrown out of the house that had been her home for 38 years. What she was not prepared for was to see Mr. Sebastian Montgomery, the richest man she knew, entering her humble little room with tears still streaming down his face. "Miss Eleanor," he said, his voice breaking, "forgive me." She stood up quickly. "Mr. Montgomery," but he didn't let her speak. "Forgive me," he repeated, taking her hands in his, "for not seeing, for not protecting, for trusting the wrong person. You're part of this family. You always were part of this family. From the first day you arrived here, and I failed you." Miss Eleanor felt tears running down her own face. 38 years. 38 years of work. And never had the boss come to her room. Never had he taken her hands. Never had he asked for forgiveness. "You don't have to apologize," she said softly. "You didn't know, but I should have known." Mr. Montgomery shook his head. "I should have paid more attention. I should have listened. You saw everything. You kept everything. And you waited for the right moment. That takes courage, it does more courage than I had." Miss Eleanor didn't know what to say, so she said nothing. Just let the tears flow. "Now listen to me very carefully," Mr. Montgomery said, regaining his business demeanor. "Starting today, many things are going to change in this house." What followed was a series of decisions that transformed the lives of all the employees at the Montgomery estate. First, Mr. Montgomery revoked the power he had given to Rebecca. The document was torn up in front of everyone's eyes. Second, he announced that no employee would be fired. All those who worked there would continue in their positions, with a 40% raise. Third, and this was what left everyone speechless, he asked Ms. Eleanor to assume the position of official estate manager. "You know this house better than anyone," he said. "You know the employees, and you know the needs, and you know the secrets. I want you to be the person responsible for everything, with a respectable salary, and with the respect you should have always had." Ms. Eleanor opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Mr. Montgomery, I don't know if I know." The old man looked her in the eyes. "I trust you. I always have trusted you. And now I'm going to prove that trust in the right way." Ms. Eleanor looked around, at the other employees who were watching with shining eyes, at Henry, who was nodding his head, at the life that was changing before her eyes. And she said, "Yes, In the following weeks, many things changed at the Montgomery estate. Ms. Eleanor's little room at the back of the house was completely renovated. New walled, new floor, new furniture. Mr. Montgomery insisted that she have a space worthy of her new position. Ruth received a new kitchen, with modern appliances, with space to work as she had always dreamed. Michael received new tools for the garden, and a team of 3 assistants so that he wouldn't have to do all the heavy work alone. Carlos received a new car to drive, and a raise that left him speechless. Translator note: Carlos' name stays because his driver. Maria received a formal apology from Mr. Montgomery for the false accusations of theft, and a check that would cover her daughter's college tuition. Translator note: Maria name stays because his worker. All the employees were treated with the respect they had always deserved, and the estate that had once been a place of fear was transformed into a dignified workplace. But for Ms. Eleanor, the biggest change wasn't the new apartment. It wasn't the higher salary, it wasn't the title of manager. The biggest change was being seen. After 38 years of being invisible, finally someone had seen her. Finally someone had recognized her worth. Finally someone had said thank you. And that was worth more than any money in the world. But the story didn't end there. 3 days later was Mr. Montgomery's birthday, 72 years old. A party that had been planned for months, with guests from all over the country, businessmen, politicians, friends of decades. Rebecca had been the one who originally planned the party, but Rebecca was gone. She had left the estate with a suitcase, the same suitcase with which she had arrived 8 months ago, without money, without a husband, without the bright future she had planned. The party continued, but with some modifications. At the moment of the speech, Mr. Montgomery walked onto the small stage that had been set up in the estate's garden. The guests applauded. They expected the typical words of thanks, the typical speech of a successful businessman. What they received was something completely different. "Thank you all for coming, Mr. Montgomery began. But before celebrating my 72 years, I need to do something important. I need to acknowledge someone who should have been acknowledged a long time ago." The guests looked at each other, confused. "Ms. Eleanor," Mr. Montgomery said, looking towards the corner of the garden where she was standing with the other employees. "Come here." Ms. Eleanor felt her heart race. She looked at Ruth, who nodded her head. She looked at Michael, who gently pushed her forward. And she walked towards the stage. When she reached Mr. Montgomery's side, she felt all eyes on her. Businessmen in expensive suits, politicians with fake smiles, people who would never look at her twice on the street. And now they were all looking at her. "This woman," Mr. Montgomery said, putting his hand on her shoulder, "has worked in my house for 38 years. She saw this family grow up. She saw my children born. She cared for my wife until her last day. And recently she did something that I will never forget." A pause. "She protected my family from a threat that I myself brought into this house. She saw what I didn't see. She heard what I didn't hear, and she had the courage to act when I failed." Mr. Sebastian Montgomery turned towards Ms. Eleanor, and then he did something that none of the guests expected. He knelt before her. A murmur rippled through the crowd. An $800 million businessman kneeling before a housekeeper. It was something no one had ever seen before. "Ms. Eleanor," he said, looking up, "forgive me for not seeing it sooner. Forgive me for not protecting you. And thank you. Thank you for 38 years of loyalty. Thank you for taking care of my family when I couldn't. Thank you for being the person you are." Ms. Eleanor felt tears streaming down her face. She didn't know what to do. She didn't know what to say. Then she did the only thing she could do. She knelt too. And there they were. 2 people kneeling, facing each other. A millionaire and a housekeeper, a business mogul and a cleaner. 2 human beings, recognizing that, in the end, we are all the same. The silence lasted only a few seconds, but they were the longest seconds of Ms. Eleanor's life. She looked at Mr. Sebastian. He looked at her. And in that moment, 38 years of history passed between them. 38 years of work and of loyalty, of good times and bad, of births and deaths, of joys and sorrows. Ms. Eleanor remembered the day she arrived at that house. She was 29 years old, young, scared. Mr. Sebastian was just a businessman with a dream, and Ms. Mariana had greeted her with a smile that she never forgot. She remembered the day Henry was born. She was the first person, besides his parents, to hold him. Those tiny hands grasping her finger. Those little eyes looking up, without understanding anything about the world. She remembered the day Ms. Mariana was diagnosed with cancer. She remembered the nights at the hospital, the prayers in silence, the hidden tears. And she remembered the day she finally passed away, with Ms. Eleanor holding her hand until the very last moment. All of that happened in those seconds. All of that floated in the air between them. And then Ms. Eleanor did something that no one expected. She took Mr. Sebastian's hand and said something that she had been holding in for a very long time. "Ms. Mariana would be proud of you, sir," she whispered. "She always said you had a good heart. You just needed someone to help you see it." Mr. Sebastian let out a sob. The tears ran harder down his face. And in that moment, in front of all the guests, the millionaire and the housekeeper embraced like family, like friends, like two people who had been through so much together and could finally rest. The guests began to applaud, first timidly, then forcefully, then with tears in their eyes, because everyone there knew they were witnessing something rare, something you don't see every day, a moment of true humanity in a world that often forgets what that means. When they finally stood up, Mr. Sebastian took the microphone one last time. "From today forward," he said, "Ms. Eleanor is the official administrator of the Montgomery estate, and more than that, she is part of my family, officially, forever." The applause continued, and Ms. Eleanor, for the first time in 38 years, allowed herself to smile. Not a timid smile, not a housekeeper's smile, a smile of victory. This story shouldn't exist. There shouldn't be a world where a 67-year-old woman needs to record 847 hours of humiliation to prove her truth. There shouldn't be a world where cruelty hides behind perfect smiles. There shouldn't be a world where the invisible have to fight so hard to be seen. But that world does exist, and what we can do is tell these stories so that people know that patience sometimes wins, that the truth sometimes appears, that justice sometimes arrives. If this story touched you, if you felt something while listening, I want you to do something for me. It's not subscribing, it's not sharing, it's something simpler. The next time you see someone who is invisible, a doorman, a housekeeper, a security guard, a janitor, look into that person's eyes and say thank you, because you never know the story that person is carrying. You never know the battles that person is fighting. And sometimes, just sometimes, a simple thank you can be the difference between a day of silence and a day of hope. Ms. Eleanor was silent for 38 years, but when she opened her mouth, she changed everything. And that's the lesson that I take away from this story. Silence has power, but the truth has more, and in the end, that's what matters. if you made it this far, if you listened to this entire story, if you felt that something changed inside of you, then you understand why I do this, why I tell these stories, why I spend hours looking for accounts of people that the world ignores. Those stories matter. The invisible people matter. And every time someone gives a super thanks, every time someone shares, every time someone comments, they are saying that it matters to them too. It's not an obligation. It never will be. But if you want to be part of this, the golden heart is down there, and it means more than I can explain with words. Now, before I go, I want to ask you a question. Have you ever been silent when you should have spoken? Have you ever seen an injustice and done nothing? Have you ever let fear silence you? I'm not judging you. We've all been there. We've all been quiet when we should have shouted, but next time, think of Ms. Eleanor. Think of 38 years of patience. Think of an old cell phone and 847 hours of truth. And maybe, just maybe, you'll find the courage to open your mouth, because silence can be strategy. But the truth always wins. There's a photo on Ms. Eleanor's nightstand, an old photo, yellowed with time. It shows a young woman, 29 years old, with black hair and a shy smile. Next to her, another woman, blonde, elegant, with a genuine smile. Behind them, a house much smaller than the current Montgomery estate. It was Ms. Eleanor's first day of work. It was the first photo that Ms. Mariana had taken of her. Underneath the photo, written by hand by Ms. Mariana, was a phrase, "Welcome to the family." Ms. Eleanor looks at that photo every night before she goes to sleep, and every night she whispers the same words. Thank you, Ms. Mariana, for seeing me when no one else did, for treating me like family when I was just a housekeeper, for teaching me that dignity has no price. And now, 38 years later, finally, the whole family had learned that same lesson. Dignity has no price, and no Rebecca in the world can ever steal that from anyone. If anything in this story resonated with you, if you recognize someone you know in Ms. Eleanor, if you thought of your own mother, grandmother, or even yourself, then this story has served its purpose, because stories like these aren't just entertainment, they're reminders that the invisible people exist, that the invisible people fight, and that the invisible people sometimes win. Ms. Eleanor won, not with violence, not with shouting, not with revenge. She won with patience, with evidence, with the truth. And that is the most powerful lesson of all. 38 years of silence, 1 minute of truth, and everything changed, forever. Sometimes people ask me why I tell these stories, why I spend hours researching them, why I care about the people the world forgets, and the answer is simple. Because someone has to tell them. Because every Ms. Eleanor deserves to be heard. Because every Rebecca deserves to be exposed. And because every person who listens to a story like this, maybe, just maybe, will treat the next doorman, the next cleaning lady, the next security guard with a little more respect, and that is already worth it. Thank you for listening. Until the very end, I'll see you in the next story.